Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to welcome you to the ordinary general shareholders meeting of Cellnex Telecom, both those of you who are here in the room as well as those who are participating through telematic assistance and those who are following the streaming. We are holding this general shareholders meeting at second call for the approval of the annual accounts of fiscal year 2025 and the rest of the proposals according to the agenda. I would now like to give the floor to the Secretary to read the call and the provisional forum and the rest of information on the general shareholders meeting. Thank you. Good morning, and following legal formalities, Madrid, 11:30, April the 30th, 2026, general shareholders meeting has been held at 11:30 at Paseo de la Castellana number 81. The meeting has been called due to a decision of the Board of Directors, and the call was published on March 27th at the website of the Spanish Securities Committee and in the newspaper El Economista, according to the Spanish legislation, given that the call is long, and as mentioned, it's been published back in March 27th, unless any other proposal it'll be declared read according to the bylaws, and the Board of Directors agreed to provide telematic assistance for the participation and attendance that allow real-time participation of the meeting, as well as telematic voting for all the participants. In the call, you can check the use of such a mechanism, and in the website of the company, you can find the instructions for telematic assistance. Additionally, and notwithstanding what's been mentioned previously, shareholders have been able to exercise their rights through the telematic means prior to the meeting. In the call, it is expressly mentioned that the shareholders have the right to receive all the documentation that's linked to this meeting, and it has been provided to those who have requested it as well. All the information and documentation linked to the general shareholders meeting has been available to all shareholders since it was called back in March 27, both in the headquarters as well as in the website of the company. And last, I'd like to mention that shareholders who are present in this room will find in several places QR codes, and to have information to all have access to all the information of the meeting. In the application, you can also see the full text of all the elements that are going to be voted today. I would also like to mention that the President AGM has the Notary Public, Mr. Rodrigo Tenarregui, that has been called by the Board of Directors to generate the minutes in accordance to Article 2003 of the Spanish Companies Act on assistance, and according to the call of the meeting at 10:30, we have closed the process of telematic assistance, and a few instances ago we closed the number of participants that are assisting this meeting physically. And adding up votes of those shareholders present and those by proxy, we are able to declare open this general shareholders meeting. Notwithstanding the fact that they will keep on accepting the participation cuts of shareholders until we formally create the list of assistants. According to the latest information, the quorum at the start of the general shareholders meeting is as follows: 324 shareholders present or represented, that account for 892,587,710 shares that account for 87.13% of the equity of the company. President? Well, taking into account the data provided by the Secretary, the ordinary general shareholders meeting is opened in accordance with the rules and regulations of the board. The table of the ordinary general shareholders meeting of Cellnex Telecom is made up by the President, myself, the CEO, Mr. Marco Patuano, the Secretary, Mr. Xavier Puyol, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Martín Alias, and the Notary Public, Mr. Antonio Rega. President and Secretary of the meeting, of the general meeting, and it's going to be myself as President, and Xavier Puyol, who are also the members of the board. The agenda will include my presentation and the CEO's presentation. Next, we will have a Q&A session for those shareholders who wish to participate, to request the clarifications on the information they might require, to the shareholders who wish to participate in the room from this moment and until the end of Mr. Patuano's presentation. Please attend, and you can go to the table for the Q&A session. In such a table, you will need to provide your information and explain the topic of your intervention. Those shareholders who want to participate will have to request your participation at the table. If you wish it to be fully included in the minutes, you will have to provide a text to be checked and included in the minutes. We have no participants through telematic assistant shareholders. Mr. Don Rodrigo Antonio Regi, the Notary Public, is here to generate or create the minutes of the meeting. And next, I would like to give the floor to the Notary. Thank you. According to the request made by the company Cellnex Telecom SA in March 27th, 2026, I would like to make the following comments in accordance with Article 203 of the Spanish Public Companies Act. In accordance with what's established by Spanish legislation, I would like to ask the participants if there's any protest on all the manifestations on the number of shareholders attending the meeting and the capital present or represented. There has been no reserves on the comments made by the Secretary on the number of shareholders attending the meeting and the capital present at the meeting. I would like to now start my presentation. 2025 is my first full year as President of Cellnex, and with the CEO, we would like to share the main milestones and events that have marked the life of the company throughout the year. I would like to inform on the work of the Board of Directors, and we will make some general comments on the objectives and the performance of the company. Marco Patuano will elaborate on the performance of the company in 2025. 1 year ago, I addressed you for the first time as a President, and I made some commitments that I would like to say have been met, and in fact before what we expected in the Capital Markets Day in 2023. In 2025, we presented some changes in the structure of the board, and in this meeting we would like to share with you some of the changes that we expect you to approve, and we expected to have the right structure to achieve our objectives. Of course, we comply with all the legal regulations, even if sometimes they might not seem the most appropriate one, and we follow the recommendations when we believe we should, and we believe we have a board that meets in the most strict international regulations recognized by the high percentages of approval that we have one attending to this meeting. It is, a good governance, a way of explaining the relationship between those who manage the company and those who trust them, which is shareholders, the shareholders. That's the criteria with which the board works and with which we measure our performance. Changes in governance models, and the most important change in the governance model that we would like you to approve this year is to re-elect the board members. It's a board that it's renewed every year. It's not a weaker. The board is a more responsible board. It's more accountable towards the shareholders, the markets, and itself. This model is usual practice in most international markets, and it's the one that Cellnex would approve today if you shareholders vote in favor of this proposal, which does not mean that there's going to be less stability in the structure of the board. Quite the opposite. We believe there's a learning process, and when we appoint board member, we expect them to follow the company and accompany the company in the long term. We believe that the mix of those companies that know the company well, that have gone through its several life cycles, is a great asset. The only meaning of this proposal is that each year we are subject to the vote of shareholders and the other ones that who should decide. We have also consolidated in 2025 a remuneration model based strictly on performance. After 2026, shareholders will approve previously the remuneration of the CEO and the management team linked to action plans. And we commit to publish the metrics of these incentives in the long term at the end of each cycle in a transparent way. Board members in 2025 also receive part of remuneration in shares, reinforcing in such a way the link with the shareholders. These aren't just formal commitments, but deliberate decisions that show the type of company that we want to become, align with the interests of our shareholders. With the new appointments that we'll propose next, we will also ask you to approve the re-election of 8 board members. Each of them has been assessed by the board and the Retribution and Sustainability Committee, and the proposal of re-election is the result of such a process. Marco Patuano is chosen as executive, as CEO, and his re-election is linked to the practices of the board. A company requires a management that's able to execute the objectives of the company in the long term. Christian Coco and Jonathan Amoyal are elected as board members in representation of Edizione and TCI respectively. Their continuity reflects something that no governance document can show: the trust of the two main institutional shareholders at Cellnex, and the path that this board has chosen, and the project we are sharing with you today in terms of independent board members. We have Marieta de Rivero, Ana García Fau, Maite Ballester, and Dominique Denis. Each provides to the board a differential profile. The process of re-election has shown that contribution is still pertinent and needed for the phase that Cellnex is facing. The criteria is not continually for its sake, but actually the contribution of each board member that reinforces the board of directors to be able to counsel and guide. Today we're also proposing the approval of 2 new independent directors, and I would like to explain the reasons behind those 2 proposals. Cynthia Gordon spent 3 years building and transforming telecommunication operators in very different scenarios and geographies. Cellnex operating today in 10 European countries. Our ability to create value relies in how we manage that complexity, and Cynthia provides the board something that just figures can capture the criteria of those who have made a difficult business decision in difficult contexts. Kais Benamita has been the financial director in very demanding markets like France and the Middle East, and he has participated in mergers and acquisitions in environments in which capital assignment is a competitive advantage. Cellnex is at a point in which it has to optimize its balance. Kais reinforces precisely the ability the board needs to be able to monitor those decisions with rigor. The board and the proposals that we are presenting today, 8 re-elections and 2 new appointments, is a proposal that aims to provide a new structure to this board. If approved, we will have 12 members, 12 non-executive, independent, and 2 women, and 2 proprietary. This is the structure of a board that's ready for our future. And, well, the context does not simplify technology, acceleration, geopolitical pressure, and capital markets in Europe create a context in which consistency and transparency have become strategic assets. Companies that generate trust in difficult times have a real advantage, and Cellnex wants to be one of those companies. From a business perspective, and notwithstanding the fact that the CEO will elaborate on it, we have identified 2 key vectors of growth: densification and quality of the network, and security and defense on the other hand. First, the density of networks and the increased amount of quality open a space for growth that's especially relevant. The so-called indoor solutions, big transportation infrastructure, sports and cultural venues, as well as densified urban areas, require the deployment of neutral infrastructure so operators can offer their clients the quality of services they are demanding. And that's in itself the natural environment for Cellnex. Second, and I would like to highlight this aspect, we truly believe that infrastructure, telecommunication infrastructures, should be part of expenditure plans of security and defense, which should be the priority of any government. We should remember that Cellnex is already, and in several geographies, designated critical infrastructure, and we provide essential services to the police, the military, medical emergencies, through our networks, through our PPDR networks. We provide assistance to systems such as the medical emergency system of Catalonia, or on the firefighter or civil protection networks in Italy, and Tetra and DMR networks in Poland, Portugal, and the Netherlands, just to mention a few examples. And over 100,000 locations are a strategic asset that's been called to complete the defense and security infrastructures in Europe, which is a country that, as Mr. Ruud, the Secretary General of NATO, it's not in a war, but it's not in peace either. And that's why we have constant conversations with governments and companies in the sector to make the most of joint development opportunities. And beyond those 2 factors, it is important to mention that our backlog and sales close is the one that guarantees the transparency of our revenues. Of course, we must comply with everything included in our long-term contracts, and that discipline, contractual discipline, is the base for everything else. The combination of those 3 elements, density, security and defense, and robust backlog, place Cellnex in a privileged position to keep on growing. Of course, I would like to mention one aspect of the performance of the company we are not happy with, and I'm talking about, of course, the price of our shares in the markets. So despite we have met the objectives, this has not been accompanied by the behavior of our share price. Today, the share price of our company is much below its intrinsic value. That's linked to our plans and the plans that we are meeting and that we will keep on meeting. That's why we started a buyback plan that we will continue in 2026. Well, there's a difference between the share price and the intrinsic value of the company. Believe me when I say that we believe this is a very important topic, and it is today our clear priority, and that's a solution we are committed to. Both capital profitability and giving that value back to our shareholders through dividend and shares buyback is one of our objectives. We are meeting the objectives and the commitments made to our shareholders for reducing our debt and starting generating a free cash flow that will grow the next few years, that will start being noticeable in 2026. The cause for the behavior of these markets is clearly the concern on the consolidation that operators might have, and the consolidation of operators that might have in our company. We believe that pessimistic view is wrong, as what can be seen in the countries in which this consolidation has taken place. We have agreed with operators higher volumes of network density, extending the life of our contracts and reinforcing those contracts. We have negotiated, understanding the needs of operators, looking for mutually beneficial agreements, because consolidations are linked to improvements in the services of operators, and so in greatest investment and density. So more investment and higher quality, which is an advantage for both clients and companies. Consolidation will not be justified unless those objectives are met. Our trust is that seeing the markets will follow and meeting our free cash flow generation and giving back to our shareholders, the view of the markets will change. We only need persistence and do what we promise. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, Europe needs a neutral infrastructure that's well governed, and Cellnex can be a reference, as well as paying to our shareholders according to our commitments, and it will be able to do so not just thanks to its size, but also given the quality of its decisions, the strength of its governance, and the coherence of its purpose. This board works to make sure that position is not just aspiration, but a reality that can be proved every year to our shareholders. I would like to end by thanking the effort made by all those who work in Cellnex in the countries in which we operate, and we want to thank them for their commitment and their excellence in meeting their obligations, at the head of which we can find Mr. Marco Patuano, our CEO, who leads a very important transformation process that started since he was appointed, and that will allow us to grow in a profitable way and in a sustainable way in the future. I would also like to thank the work of the directors in the year that has been very demanding. And I would especially like to thank the president of the three committees, whose work is essential for the board, and in my opinion, and for me personally, they are of a great support. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, directors, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, Cellnex team, journalists, dear friends. It's a pleasure to be with you once more to explain the performance of 2025 and what we're doing. And to do so, I would like to organize my presentation around 3 blocks. In the first one, I will briefly review the exercise, the fiscal year, and the results we are showing today. Second, what we're doing to ensure value generation and organic growth. Third, our industrial view, the geopolitical context, and how we expect to get the most of our position as infrastructure and telecommunication infrastructure leaders in Europe. In 2025, has been a turning point in the transformation of Cellnex. We had solid organic results with an increase of our revenue by 8.9% of EBITDA after lease. The recurrent free cash flow was 11.5% organically. The improvement of free cash flow has confirmed the robustness of our organic growth and constant progress of the operational efficiency of the company that has allowed us to improve all our financial indicators. We have proved that growth, financial discipline, value creation for shareholders can go hand in hand. For third year in a row, And in each and every one of our quarters, we have met the objectives we have announced. All the indicators in the year have been aligned with the forecast that we have communicated to the markets. Results show a constant organic growth, reinforced profitability, and the acceleration of free cash flow generation. We have kept on advancing in our transformation agenda by combining operational excellence and financial strength. This has reinforced the position of Cellnex as a leading telecommunication infrastructure operator in Europe. And besides, as mentioned by the President in his intervention, we have increased and accelerated the remuneration of our shareholders compared to our original objectives. Now, by business line, telecommunication towers, which is the core of the activity of the group, generated 3.2 billion euros in revenues with an organic growth of 5.5%, pushed by contractual escalators and the activities linked to the PCI solid and the creation of the build-to-suit entities. And points of presence grew by 4.5% and actually grew in every market, which shows sustained commercial activity. Co-locations grew by 2.4%, build-to-suit contributed with 2.2%, and the churn rate was still low at an increase of 0.2%. All the countries closed the year with positive data, with an average increase of our portfolio of around 2% year-on-year, even in markets that are in the process of being consolidated. Quarterly performance has shown the sustained dynamism of the business throughout the year, with progressive acceleration of the creation of points of presence in terms of high-density indoor systems, volume-limited DAAs, small cells, and RAN as a service and other network services contributed with 272 million euros with an organic growth of 4.9%. Broadcasting provided 264 million euros with a growth of 1.9% in a year that was marked by the renewals of long-term contracts, which shows our essential presence in telecommunication and networks of the operators. Network connectivity and storage generated 234 million euros with a growth of 16.1%, mainly due to the deployment of the Next Look fiber project in France. Good results of the company are linked to improvements in customer satisfaction results that got to all-time high levels with a customer satisfaction score of 8.3 out of 10. I would especially like to mention the use of artificial intelligence. Its use in our operational processes is already providing very positive results. Cost of staff per tower were reduced in 1.9%, maintenance costs reduced by 1.4%, and general expenditure were reduced by 4.1%. The improvement of data and deployment of our operational systems based on artificial intelligence improve visibility and the precision and trustworthiness of our processes. And thanks to the use of artificial intelligence, we've been able to improve the efficiency of leases through the progressive purchase of land. This allowed us to control in a better manner long-term costs, and it has helped us consolidate our subsidiary linked to the management of land, Cellnex, as a key platform for value creation within the group. As a consequence of all the previous aspects, EBITDA margin improved by 160 basic points in 2025, which shows that our company is in its way to reach its ambitious profitability objectives. From a purely financial perspective, we have reduced debt, and we are in a path to bring it to under 6 times EBITDA. Cash flow generation, which was one of our main objectives in the Capital Markets Day of 2024, has allowed us to anticipate and increase the remuneration of our shareholders. In 2025, in January 2025, we announced a buyback project of up to 800 million, and then in November 2025, we added an additional 200 million to the program. And additionally, as mentioned yesterday, the dividend of 250 million euro in January this year is the first part of the remuneration that will be paid out in 2026. And the second payment of 250 million euros is expected to take place on July the 15th, 2026. I would like to especially mention sustainability. Although today there's a trend to reduce or not pay enough attention to ESG indicators, we in the board of directors are still fully committed with the objectives we set. We have been able to make sure that 100% of the energy we use is green. We make all our efforts to improve in all the indicators that are linked to the governance of the company and its ethical standards. Fair treatment to employees and suppliers, and also improving our diversity policies, as can be shown by our presence in main sustainability indexes. But we are aware of the fact that we can still improve. Especially, we have to be able to have more women in management positions. I would like to finish this block by mentioning our model. We have been able to optimize our portfolio through a disciplined assignment of our capital and divestments aligned with our strategic plan. So, as a summary, dear shareholders, the main financial and industrial indicators of the company are extremely healthy and stable. Please now, and dear shareholders, allow me to talk about the present.
Not what it was, but what we are building for the Cellnex tomorrow to be even more robust. At the beginning of this year, the board approved a new organizational structure, but I would like to make it very clear what that means and what it does not mean. It is not an administrative adjustment. It is a strategic decision, simplified in order to accelerate, focus in order to grow. The new structure is articulated around 4 corporate units: finance, operations, strategy, and corporate affairs, and 5 units in geographic clusters: France, Alpine, Italy and Switzerland, Iberia, Spain and Portugal, and north of Europe, which is UK, Poland, Denmark, the Netherlands and Sweden, and a new pan-European vertical solution unit. This architecture allows to concentrate on the most important element, the strategic priorities which have a greater impact for the group and for the shareholders. We have invested more than 43 billion euros in the last decade. It is the largest bet on digital infrastructure in Europe that has been carried out. Nobody in Europe has built what Cellnex has built. And now we come to the point to develop that investment, to leverage that investment. We are not growing in our perimeter, but in depth. And we now can expand, and we also can generate sustained value in the long term. And the results for 2025 are testimony to that. Europe enters the hyperconnectivity era. Artificial intelligence, 5G, 6G, connected mobility, defense and resilience, all those technologies have one thing in common. They rely on a physical network, which is a real one and a resilient one. Without towers, there is no coverage. Without coverage, there is no connectivity. Without connectivity, there is no digital transformation, and without digital transformation, Europe loses competitiveness vis-à-vis other powers. The investment gap is estimated at around $100 billion in the next 5 to 7 years. It is not an abstract figure. That's a difference between a Europe that leads compared to a Europe that follows. And Cellnex wants to be part of this solution. We are ready to accompany the next investment wave. The consolidation of the operators is a phenomenon that we follow up very attentively. The large operators are investing more. Competition goes from price to quality, and that is good. It is good for the consumers, It is good for the industry, it is good for Europe and for Cellnex. But consolidation cannot translate into legal uncertainty, and I want to be very clear in this respect. Our contract, what we call MSA or MLA, are commitments that have been negotiated for years, signed with transparency, with full awareness of their implications for all parties. They are not just a small letter, they are the backbone of the model. Clauses like all or nothing consent rights, the 10, 15, 20-year deadlines, those are mechanisms that do not protect Cellnex. They exist because infrastructure requires certainty in order to attract long-term capital. And when capital does not have certainty, it becomes more expensive. And when it becomes more expensive, Europe invests less and nobody wins. What has happened in Spain and the UK shows that the model works when principles are respected. In the case of MasOrange in Spain, we reached an agreement that preserves value for Cellnex and contributes real flexibility to our customer. An agreement that is already generating results exceeding the initial expectations by both parties. In the UK, the merger of Vodafone and Three has generated a promising environment for investment, respected contracts, new opportunities for redensification in an urban area, and internal connectivity. That is the benefits when you comply with the conditions and the requirements and you respect the contracts, everyone is benefited. So this is an opportunity for our regulatory framework. According to a GSMA recent report, more than 500 licenses will expire in Europe in the next decade. The reform of the renewal policy could release up to 30 billion euros in additional investment capacity. This is not a technical discussion. It is a strategic opportunity that Europe cannot miss. And Cellnex wants to be an active part of this conversation, not just as a stakeholder, but as an industrial player that is able to mobilize capital, deploy infrastructure, invest, and co-build together with the operators the networks that Europe needs. We have spoken about Europe a lot, and I think that we should speak even more about Europe. We are going through a moment of reconfiguration of the world order. Technology is not just a question of companies, it has become a question of nations. The digital infrastructures, either towers, fiber, network nodes, are strategic assets at the same level as roads, ports, and grids. The one who controls digital infrastructures controls the capacity to communicate, to compete, and of course to defend. The world is organized around technological blocks. The US and China are leading the race for AI, quantum computing, the new generation networks. And Europe has a talent, has an industry, more than anything has the values. What we need is political will and industrial structures that are able to execute at the scale of this challenge. Cellnex is one of those infrastructures. And Europe should support the European groups like Cellnex that, apart from contributing to protecting the value that Europe represents, can compete in a global environment without losing sight of their European roots. We are the largest operator of this type of infrastructure in Europe, present in 10 countries with more than 100,000 towers and 180,000 presence points. We are connected to all the relevant operators in the continent and with a neutral and independent model of operation, without conflicts of interest at the service of every customer alike. This model is not just a competitive advantage, it is a contribution to European digital sovereignty. Because when infrastructure is in the hands of an independent player, you prevent the dependence on just one player. You guarantee access, open access and non-discrimination, and you reduce the systemic risk of the digital ecosystem. So This is what it means to be a neutral operator. It is not a technical concept, it is a position. We are side by side with competition, with openness, and with a European concept. I need to be honest about what Europe needs. They need legal certainty. Contracts have to be respected, not just as a favor, but as a structural condition to attract long-term investment. Cellnex has committed more than 43 billion euros based on clear and stable agreements. If those agreements are questioned because of the commercial pressure, political convenience, or the temptation of a unilateral renewal, the private capital for the long term will withdraw. And without that capital, Europe will not close that investment gap. Second, regulatory framework that rewards investment. The renewal of the licenses are a very powerful tool, the same as having clear rules for the redesign of the market for operators. If operators invest more in the network, Cellnex will invest more in infrastructure. And that's a multiplying effect which is huge. And the final benefit is for the European citizen that gets better coverage, better speed, digital services which are more advanced and at a good price. Third, new needs require new answers. Europe has connectivity challenges that are not fully solved yet. The railway corridors and the road corridors, the large facilities, energy resilience of the networks, defense and security, the connectivity for those users, the coverage of rural and remote areas, that today is an equity debt that we have and that is unacceptable. Cellnex provides the infrastructure and the knowledge to solve those challenges, but we need governments and European institutions to define the framework clearly and to commit the necessary resources so that they recognize infrastructure companies as what we are, which is strategic partners of the European digital agenda, not just low-cost suppliers. The model of our business has developed. Cellnex should not be perceived as an outsourcer of asset portfolios. We should be recognized as what we are, which is a technological partners of the operators, of our customers, of the governments, and of the European digital economy. And that involves a continuation of our investment in next generation technologies, in network solutions for applications for AI, energy efficiency, because sustainability and competitiveness do not oppose each other, they reinforce each other. And also the training of digital talent in the markets where we operate. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, Europe needs industrial champions, not national champions who are protected by artificial borders, but European companies that are able to compete at a global scale, to mobilize private capital in the long term, to execute with excellence, and that's what European citizens deserve. Cellnex aspires to be one of those players. We have the assets, we have the experience, we have the team, and we have the ambition. What we request from Europe and from its governments, institutions and investors is that they trust our model, that they respect the agreements and that they bet and promote investments. And what we committed to do was to give back what we have always offered: quality infrastructure, disciplined management, sustainable growth, return for investors, and value creation in the long term. I would like to close with my gratitude. I would like to thank you, dear shareholders, for your trust and your support, to the board for the commitment and the work, and to all the Cellnex professionals in 10 countries whose daily work makes possible everything that I'm telling you today. Analysts, investors, journalists, regulators, national governments, European organizations. Thank you very much. Thank you for this permanent dialogue. We continue to build together. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marco. Now, before we start the Q&A session in accordance with the good governance call for listed companies, I'm going to inform you about the degree of follow-up of the recommendations of the Stock and Exchange Commission recommendations. As it is encompassed in the report on corporate governance for the year 2025, Cellnex complies with almost all the recommendations of this ethics code. There's only one, recommendation 48, that we do not fulfill, and excluding all the other recommendations that were not applicable to the company in 2025. Among those, because the company was not controlled by another institution, not having exercised any shareholders the right to supplement the agenda, not having paid premiums for attendance to the AGM, and not having nominee directors. The only recommendation that we do not fulfill, which is recommendation 48, establishes that the high capitalization companies have appointments and separate appointment and remuneration committees. Regarding that, I would say that the sustainability appointment and remuneration committee is just one, because we didn't consider it necessary to have separate ones, because the current committee is able to carry out both aspects in a unified way. I can go over now to the secretary, who is going to read the data about the quorum and attendance. Thank you very much. The final data regarding attendance are the following: 76 present shareholders who own 85,469,000 shares, that represent 12.52% of the share capital, and 256 represented by proxy with 507,400,000 shares, that represent 74.4% of the share capital. So among all, we have 332 shareholders that are holders of 562 million shares, that represent 86.82% of the share capital of Cellnex. The final quorum will be published in the web page and in the minutes of this meeting in the next 4 to 5 days. We also state that the treasury stock are in the amount of 30,680,000 shares, representing 1.71% of the share capital, all as a consequence of the execution of the repurchase agreement of shares that was communicated in November 2025 with the purpose to reduce the share capital of the company through amortization of acquired shares, which will be carried out according to the capital reduction agreement that was agreed by this AGM. According to the article number 48 of the company's law, the treasury stock has been calculated as part of the attendance quorum for the holding of this AGM. But treasury stock have a suspension of the voting rights and also political rights, so they have not voted in this AGM. Dear President, in light of the data that has been appointed, we ratify that this is a validly convened AGM in its second call. Now we open up the Q&A session, the turn of interventions according to Article 17 of the bylaws. The interventions of those requesting to take the floor will be done in the order in which they are called. I request that you state whether you are acting on your own behalf or on behalf of other shareholders. In order to facilitate the development of the meeting, once you conclude your intervention, we will answer one after the other. to all the questions. All those requests of information that cannot be answered here will be answered in the next 7 days as contemplated in the company's law. So we can declare the Q&A session closed. So after clarifying all the questions, we go on to the next chapter. According to the requirements of the call and according to the instructions, we close the voting process of those remote attendees for the items in the agenda, which were open up to now, although no shareholders have connected. Votes in favor will be considered those to all the shares that are present in person or by proxy, and those that vote against or want to abstain, they will have to make it clear right now by coming to the fore so that the notary public can take note of it. And we have processed all the votes that have been received so far, both those that were submitted remotely and those that are extracted from all the channels that have been made available. Now, at the request of the chairman, I will make a summary of the proposals that are submitted to consideration of this AGM, and I will show the voting results, close to with abstentions and everything. The shareholders that are attending in the way that I have indicated. Item 1 of the agenda, approval of the annual accounts, management report and financial information corresponding to the fiscal year ended 31st December 2025. Item number 2 of the agenda, approval of the consolidated non-financial statement of information and sustainability information contained in the consolidated management report for the fiscal year ended 31st December 2025. Third item of the agenda, approval of the proposal for the application of the company's profit for the fiscal year ended 31st December 2025. Fourth item in the agenda, approval of the management of the board of directors for the fiscal year ended 31st December 2025. Fifth item, approval of a share capital reduction for a maximum amount of 6,250,000 euros through the retention of a maximum of 25 million shares treasury stock of the company. Delegation to the board of directors of the powers to set the other conditions of the reduction in all matters not foreseen by the general shareholders meetings, including the powers to redraft Article 6 of the bylaws related to the share capital and to request the delisting of the and cancellation of the accounting records of shares that are redeemed. Item number 6 of the agenda, amendment of the bylaws. 6.1, amendment of Article 5, corporate purpose of the company's articles of association. Item number 6.2 of the agenda, amendment of Article 7, nature or form of the shares of the company's bylaws. 6.3, amendment of Article 9, the shareholders and the corporate governance system of the company's bylaws. 6.4, the creation of Article 9b, shareholders' rights of the company's bylaws. 6.5, the creation of Article 9 ter, capital increase and reduction of the company's bylaws. 6.6, amendment of Article 18, term of the position of director of the company's bylaws. Item 6.7 of the agenda, amendment of Article 22, distribution of profits, provision and materialization of reserves of the company's bylaws. Item 7 in the agenda, re-election and appointment of directors and fixing of the number of members of the board of directors. 7.1, re-election of Mr. Oscar Van Hoel as an independent director. Item 7.2, re-election of Mr. Marco Emilio Angelo Patuano as Executive Director. Item 7.3 of the agenda, re-election of Ms. Concepción del Rivero Bermejo as Independent Director. 7.4 of the agenda, re-election of Ms. Ana Maria García Fau as Independent Director. Item 7.5, re-election of Mr. Christian Coco as nominee director. Item 7.6, re-election of Ms. María Teresa Ballester Fornés as independent director. And item 7.7, re-election of Mr. Jonathan Abuyal as nominee director. Item 7.8, re-election of Mr. Dominic Bernal as independent director. And item 7.9, appointment of Ms. Cynthia Gordon as independent director. 7.10, appointment of Mr. Kais Benamida as independent director. And 7.11, fixing the number of members of the board of directors that would be set at 12. Item 8 of the agenda, remuneration. 8.1, approval of the delivery of 64,747 shares of the company to the Chief Executive Director, Mr. Marco Patuano, as a share component of the special incentive or buyout award agreed on the occasion of his incorporation into the company on the 1st of June 2023. 8.2, approval of multi-year long-term incentive plan consisted of the delivery of shares of the company to executives and employees of the group, including the Chief Executive Officer, and the approval of the delivery of shares to the Chief Executive Officer under the aforementioned incentive plan. Item 8.3, amendment of the Director's remuneration policy. Item 9, this is an advisory vote on the annual report on Director's remuneration for the year 2025. Item 10, delegation of powers to formalize, amend, interpret and execute all the resolutions adopted by the General Shareholders meeting. In light of the development of the vote, regardless of the votes that have not been contemplated yet, there is a majority which is sufficient to approve all the proposals that were submitted by the Board of Directors to the AGM. So we can declare all the items in the agenda approved. On the other hand, regarding item 7, which is a re-election and appointment of members of directors, all those whose appointment have been proposed, they have accepted through in writing to take on that position, and there is no conflict or legal incompatibility to perform that task. The result of the votes and everything will be stated in the notarial deed. According to Article 525 of the Company Law, in the next 5 days we will include the information and the results of the votes and the agreements that have been, the resolutions that have been agreed on the web page.
Tenía esperanzas de mejorar mi resultado porque tenemos una buena noticia y es que
the CEO has had the highest figure in terms of approval among the members of the board. So, and he's ahead of me. So get ready, because this is not very nice, at least in Spain. So having said that, with the approval of all the proposals that were submitted by the Board of Directors regarding all the items in the agenda, we can declare the meeting adjourned, and we thank you very much for your attendance.